This is Norway, where electric vehicles, or EVs, are everywhere. In the first 6 months of 2019, more than half of new cars sold in the country were fully electric. Tax incentives, driving in bus lanes, and free parking are some of the factors that helped. And it has a goal of scrapping all sales of fossil-fueled vehicles by 2025. But this isn't a global trend. Canadians are buying electric more than ever before, but they still only make up 3.2% of the vehicles sold. In the US, fume-free cars make up 1.9% of the new passenger vehicle market, and on a larger scale, make up less than 0.5% of the global vehicle fleet. So why is it taking so long to make the switch, especially given that these type of vehicles go way back, like way back, to the 1800s, when the first successful electric vehicle in the US made its debut. Compared to gas and steam-powered cars, they were easy to drive and didn't emit smelly pollutants. By the turn of the century, they accounted for a third of all vehicles on the road. But somewhere along the ride, they hit a bump. As roads got better and cheaper oil was discovered, electric cars just couldn't gain traction, even when gas prices began to soar.
An electric car, partially powered by solar panels. But the truth is, gentlemen, I'm not worried about any of these things, because no one's ever going to know about them.
They also weren't exactly the most sharp-looking car on the road. And when GM pulled the plug on its own sleek, futuristic EV1, it didn't seem like electric cars would ever win the race. At least, not until a certain Silicon Valley startup known as Tesla came along with its zero-emission luxury cars. And then in 2015, with its relatively affordable Model 3, which had people lining up to put down a deposit on a car they hadn't even seen yet.
It's been a game changer. They have succeeded in convincing everyone that battery electric vehicles can have high performance, they can be sexy, everybody wants them. It's really been a complete shift in the perception of electric vehicles. And the Model 3 is very successful. Despite the setbacks they've had, it's the number one selling EV in the world this year so far.
Today, it's difficult to even find a Tesla owner who isn't incredibly passionate about their ride.
I had heard previous owners say that there was no question and that they were completely sold on the technology, and that registered, but it only really became clear to me once I got behind the car and I drove it, and the technology far exceeded my expectations.
But Tesla still belong to the higher-end EV owners, which brings us back to why consumers are still so hesitant to give up gas.
There's still a lot of knowledge gaps. People don't realize they're going to save money, which is a key factor. They don't know that it's convenient. They don't know why it's environmentally beneficial.
That's Kara Clairman. She spends a lot of her time busting EV myths and can often be found at the world's first electric vehicle discovery center. She says the initial concern consumers have is the price.
The challenge is people look at that upfront sticker price instead of looking at what we call the total cost of ownership.
Most EVs fall in the $30,000 to $45,000 range, but many countries offer financial incentives to help bring the cost down. And then, of course, the savings made on the fuel costs.
Electricity is about 1/5 the cost of gas here in Ontario. So, for example, if you're spending on average about $2,500 a year on gas fuel, I'm spending about $500 a year on electricity for my vehicle.
Less maintenance as well. No oil changes, no transmission, no muffler, which some argue is why some car dealerships are reluctant to sell EVs in the first place.
Their business model depends on the revenue from the regular maintenance that you have with gasoline cars. The dealerships are not doing a great job of promoting them. They're not necessarily the highest profit margin product, so they don't have a strong incentive at this time.
But the dealerships we spoke to point out that customers usually do their homework and know what kind of car they want even before they walk through the door.
We still see a lot of dealerships that aren't carrying them. I think you have to keep in mind that the first couple of years that EVs came out, there were only 2 or 3 makes and models available in very few dealerships. But we know that's going to change over the next 3 to 5 years.
Another main issue drivers have about EVs is range anxiety. In terms of charging times and locations, that depends on the type of car you have, the type of charger, and where you're going. Most EV drivers plug in their car at home and charge overnight. But for those long-distance drives, Level 3 chargers are slowly popping up along highways around the world. Canada has close to 7,000 public charging stations, but according to a 2017 study by GoCompare, it still ranks among the worst-equipped countries for EVs.
I mean, from where I sit, I think it's happening as fast as could be expected, just because of all the technology shifts that have to happen, the infrastructure, the training, a lot of retooling of factories and so on. I mean, it's not something that happens overnight.
So how do these cars actually run?
Wow. It's on?
It's on.
You can't even tell.
No, a lot of people ask, is it on?
Woo, that goes really fast. Really fast. Yeah, I'm already at 50 and I'm not even touching it and I'm already at the limit.
Yeah.
That was
in 1 second.
Yeah. You don't feel guilty because you're not burning any gas.
While the car itself leaves a far smaller carbon footprint, manufacturing most EVs, including the high-powered batteries, actually produce a bigger carbon footprint than manufacturing most gas cars. But many experts believe all roads do lead to EVs, eventually. It's estimated that by the mid to late 2020s, electric cars will cost the same as internal combustion competitors, and eventually even cheaper as the price of batteries go down. That, combined with a number of engineers, automakers, and policymakers putting a new focus on EV development. 2040 is when you can expect to see more of these cars on the road. By then, 57% of all passenger vehicle sales and over 30% of the global passenger vehicle fleet will likely be electric.
So it doesn't park for you.
No, this is not autonomous. This is just electric.
Now, if it's electric and it parallel parks for you,
That would be awesome.
that
Soon to come, right? Autonomous cars.
I would buy right away.
Why do you like the Tesla?
Because it's good for Mother Nature.